All right, so we want to open up Notepad++, and we're going to create a simple web page. Now, web pages, the code for a web page is divided into parts. There's some different sections that you need to know about when you create a web page. We're going to start first with what is known as a tag, and a tag is just a word or characters inside a diamond, a less than sign and a greater than sign. And the first tag we will learn about is the HTML tag. And the ending of the HTML tag is /HTML. Okay, so most tags work in pairs like this. This tells us, hey, this is the beginning of some HTML, and this tells your web browser this is the end of some HTML. And the web browser tries to interpret everything in between as a web page because it's HTML. So HTML is the first tag that we learn about. We'll surround our page with HTML. Okay. Then there's a couple other sections. Now, if we type this all up and down against the left side of our editor, what we're going to find out is that it's very hard to read. We need to keep track of where sections start and stop. And just like in other programming languages, we do that using white space. So when you get to something that's inside another container, so this is our HTML container, right? All of our HTML is contained between these two tags. So everything that's between those two tags should be indented by a level. Okay, so we're going to hit the tab key, and we will create our next section, which is the head section. Okay, and the head section also has an ending. And for that, we'll use /head. Okay. So the beginning of our head section and the end of our head section. And the things that go inside the head section are things that tell about our web page. They are not things that are displayed on our web page. They're just going to be things that tell about the content on our web page. And we'll get into more details of that in a little bit. The other section that we need to know about is the body of our web page. And then we'll do a /body. Okay. The body of our web page is where everything gets displayed. Okay. Everything that gets displayed goes in the body. Okay. Everything that's on the actual web page is in the body. Everything about the web page goes in the head. Okay. And that's the basic structure of an HTML file. Every HTML file should be in this structure. HTML, a head, an entire HTML document starts at the opening HTML tag, goes to the closing HTML tag. Okay. A head section that starts at the beginning, the opening tag for the head section and the closing tag. Everything in between there is in the head section, and it tells about our web page. And then the body section, everything between the opening and closing tag of the body is the things that are actually displayed on our web page. In addition, we should include a doctype. Okay. Now, when I talked earlier about the different types of HTML and how we had HTML and XHTML, and there was some other things in there, strict HTML, loose HTML, doctypes got really, really confusing. And in HTML5, the latest version of HTML, they really got simplified. So at the very top of our page, we want to specify our document type. And now it's as simple as exclamation point Doctype, okay, which we always had before, but then there was these big, long, giant strings of gobbledygook. Now all we do is put HTML. That's it. So this says the document is an HTML document, and then this tag specifies here's where the HTML starts and here's where the HTML stops. So let's type some code. Let's type, actually I want to stop here. I want you to save this. I'm going to do File, and I'm going to say Save As, and I'm going to use my desktop right now. So on my desktop, I'm going to save this file, and notice it wants to save it as a text file because it is a text file, but we use a special extension. So I am going to save this as, actually I'm going to make a folder for it. Let's make a folder for it. I'm going to say new folder, and I'm going to call it web. There's my web folder. And inside that, I'm going to save this document, and I'm going to call it index.html. And the reason I give it that name, index, is because most web servers look for a file called index. When somebody comes to your website, if you're going to the 4county.net website, if you type in www.4county.net and hit enter, it goes out to that web server, and the web server says, well, what file should I give them? They didn't really specify it, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later. It automatically looks for one called index that it has stored on the server, and it sends that to them. So we always want to call our main page index.html. Now you can configure web servers to use a different name for its default file. There are some web servers that use default.htm or some other default file name, but most servers these days use index.html, and that's what we will use. If you don't use that, some things are not going to work on our web server. So we'll hit save. So we have saved this on our desktop in this folder called web. There it is. And if I double click it, it'll ask me how I want to open it, and I opened it in Chrome. And here it is. And for the address, you can see users folder. That's my username, mgeiger, my desktop folder, my web folder, index.html. But you don't see anything on the page because we didn't put anything on the page yet. All we did is create the page structure. Now, here's what's really handy to do when you're editing a web page. Open up your editor in one window. And if you have a wide monitor, this is kind of nice. And then beside it, you put your web browser. And you can resize them to take. The other thing you can do is I'm going to click on Notepad++. If I hit the Windows key and the left arrow, it will automatically size that. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use the right arrow, Windows key right arrow. No, it's not doing it. I thought it should fill it up. All right, so I have my browser and my editor open. So we do this a lot in web. Now, any changes I make here, I can save them, then come over here and hit refresh in order to see the changes that happen. So when I make an edit on this page, I have to save it, which updates the file, and then I can reopen it on the right by hitting the refresh button. So let's try a new tag, and we'll see if we can make something interesting happen. So inside my head section, between the start of my header and the end of, or excuse me, the start of my head section and the end of my head section, you can see they're color coded now that I told it was an HTML file. I'm going to create a new tag, and this one is going to be a title tag. And now all of a sudden, look how much Notepad++ is helping me. As soon as I typed TI, it started showing me choices that started with TI. So here's the beginning of my title. Okay. And while I'm at it, I'm going to make the end of my title. Okay. And in this case, I'm keeping the beginning and end on the same line. But between those two tags, my open tag and my close tag, I'm going to type some words. I'm going to type Mr. Geiger's webpage. Okay. You can put your name there for your page. Mr. Geiger's webpage. I hit save. Okay. Now I go over here to my web browser and I refresh it to see those changes. Now remember, I said things in the head section don't get displayed on the page, so down here the page is still white. But if you pay close attention and look to the top, you can see up in the tab of my web browser, that's where the title appears. Okay, so that's a piece of information about this page, and it doesn't appear in the body of the page at all. It actually appears in the tab on the web browser. The web browser reads that title and adjusts the tab for that. Okay. I'm going to stop here, and the next thing we'll do is work on some tags within our body.